So there's a pretty insane story out in the New York Times today, and it reads why a progressive New York party is fighting for its survival. Now, you guys probably know the Working Families Party. It's one of the progressive groups that does its endorsements for progressive candidates in an attempt to help them win seats and to gain influence in government and in office, obviously. And so, what happened is this is really interesting, okay? So essentially, what's going on here is there has been a rule change when it comes to ballot access for third parties. Now, there are a lot of third parties in New York specifically, and so I guess New York has this weird system where a candidate can run on multiple party lines. So I guess you can vote for, Chuck Schumer both on the Democrat line as well as the Working Families Party line. You can't vote for them both that way. You can only cast one vote, but it could either be on the Working Families Party line or it could either be on the Democratic Party line. That's my understanding of it, at least. Seems like kind of an odd system here. But so what happened is, and this kind of portrays Andrew Cuomo to be kind of a mob boss. But essentially, what happened was, the Working Families Party back in 2018, they actually backed Cynthia Nixon for governor instead of Andrew Cuomo. And so it appears that in return for that, Cuomo has backed a rule that would attempt to defunct not only the Working Families Party, but most third parties by raising the vote threshold per election to manage to get that automatic ballot access. So this article here, it says, for decades, third parties in New York State had to win 50,000 votes in an election for governor to have an automatic ballot line. That began to change not long after the Working Families Party backed the actress Cynthia Nixon as a challenger to Mr. Cuomo in the 2018 Democratic primary. That choice had significant political ramifications. Just as the Working Families Party was about to name Miss Nixon as its chosen candidate, unions that are closely allied with the governor withdrew from the party. When Miss Nixon lost the primary, Working Families grudgingly backed Mr. Cuomo in the general election, but the damage had been done. The next year, the state created a commission to look into a public financing system for elections. Part of its legally binding recommendations included a shocker, raising the thresholds for minor parties to qualify for ballot access. So, this has been challenged in court, and I'm hoping that despite this getting passed, it will get challenged again and it will get shut down by the courts. This article also goes on to talk about the Conservative Party and how they're actually teaming up with the Working Families Party and other third-party groups in New York because they all have the same goal of basically being able to have ballot access and to challenge the two-party duopoly. So they're probably going to go to court. I don't really see this surviving, but it just goes to show you how much of just this kind of mob boss guy Andrew Cuomo is. He's not your friend. He's not a progressive. And more than that, I mean, he's really trying to stifle democracy here. These progressive groups are what keep progressive candidates alive. This is how they get elected. Groups like Justice Democrats, etc. So these groups are really, really important. And so now they have to get 130,000 votes or 2% of the total vote, whichever is higher, on its party line for the presidential election in November, or it will lose its automatic ballot line in New York. It used to be, I believe, 50,000 votes. Now it's 130,000, so more than doubled. And they will lose that access, that automatic ballot access. So there's a lot of third parties in New York, of course, and it's an attempt to duopolize even further our system. What's also going on, and I may cover this in another story, Wisconsin Supreme Court just ruled with one conservative joining the liberal majority, saying that the Green Party is not going to make the ballot in Wisconsin. Now, corporate Democrats obviously really excited because that helps Biden a lot, especially since he's winning 2-1 with third-party 2016 voters. But the dangerous part about that, obviously, is you're kind of stifling democracy almost entirely by basically being like, yep, we're not going to allow this party. Like, people are making the point, imagine if this was another country doing this. It is pretty insane when you really think about it. But these groups are vital to the survival of progressive the progressive movement. Working Families Party, these groups are not never going to agree with 100%, but as you see, they backed Cynthia Nixon in 2018, a really bold move. They had actually backed Cuomo in the past. So what you got to understand is just Democrats, Working Families Party, all these groups, they're crucial to the progressive movement. And Cuomo is trying to quash all of those movements because they tried to take him down with Cynthia Nixon. And he sees what's going on in New York. We've seen what's going on with Jamaal, Bowman, and Mondaire, Jones, and AOC. There's a progressive uprising going on in New York right now. And so he's trying to quash it because he's a fucking mob boss. This guy is a goddamn... He's a fascist, man. This guy's crazy. He's like, no, you're trying to have democracy? No. I'm the Democrat king here. I give these speeches as I stuff old people into nursing homes during the coronavirus, and everybody hails me because I'm talking to CNN like I'm a good guy, when really I'm a massive piece of shit. It's crazy, man. It really, really is crazy.